The protests in Egypt are only expected to grow, especially now that the military there has said it recognizes the legitimacy of the people's demands and won't fire against any peaceful protesters. The U.S. State Department is flying Americans out of the country, where the chaos is spreading and the crisis is affecting everyday life. In the home of the Nile and pyramids, immense protests are attracting lots of rioters and looters. Young men armed with bats and axes are trying to protect their neighborhoods, stopping cars to check for looters. There's panic buying in grocery stores, and in the market, it's a 5-hour wait to buy bread. Many stores, gas stations, and banks are closed. ATMs are empty.
Everything is stopped here in Egypt, you see? Everything is stopped.
Everything is stopped.
Yeah.
In her Cairo apartment, Debbie Alcala from Arizona is packing up.
It's not the way I thought I would leave, but I hope I'll be back. I have a business here.
The drive to the airport was a crawl, and once there, another long wait for a flight out. The U.S. State Department used charter planes today to fly 1,200 Americans to nearby countries. Another 1,200 will go tomorrow. Ryan and Joanna Miller from California are relieved to be out.
They had put a boulder through the bottom of the hotel, broken in, loitered the entire mall next door, and then burned it to the ground, which was attached to our hotel.
Down Mubarak!
Protesters are calling for 82-year-old Hosni Mubarak, the authoritarian leader for nearly 3 decades, to leave. On TV today, his vice president said he wants a dialogue with the opposition, but it may be too late. Dr. Shaul Gabbay is joining us now. He's a Middle East expert at the University of Denver. Dr. Gabbay, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
In your opinion, is Mubarak on his way out? Is there any way after all of this that he can stay and continue his rule?
You know, it's a question that everyone wants to know the answer. It's definitely that he's on his way out. The question is, how long is this process going to take? And of course, we're very worried about the extent of how long this is going to take, because if it takes very short, if he just leaves, then we have a vacuum in Egypt, a political vacuum. And as we know from other revolutions, in that case, what happens is that the constituency, which is the most organized, will take power, in this case in Egypt, and that is the Muslim Brotherhood, which we can speak about, but is very, very alarming for us if this indeed happens. So I wouldn't yet conclude that Mubarak is going to go in the next few days. In fact, if you listen to his speech, he says that he did not speak at all about leaving. He has changed his government. He has changed the vice president, which comes from the military. And we still have to see how it's going to play out. And the most important events in the next few days is tomorrow, the call for millions to come for a protest in Egypt, and then on Friday again. If indeed the regime continues to stay, the army does not get into too much conflicts with the protesters, then we have a situation where it's not clear that he's going to go in the short run.
So how does what happens in Egypt potentially affect the rest of the Middle East? And even beyond that, what does it potentially mean for us here in the United States?
No question that this is a very, very important time in terms of the Middle East as well as the rest of the world. We have to remember Egypt is the most important ally that we have after the State of Israel. It has the second most developed military in the Middle East after Israel. It is totally armed by American weapons and technology. It is a very, very important constituency that we have there. For 30 years was responsible for the peace with the State of Israel. If something happens in that country, which is, like I said, the most important of our allies in the Arab world, that will have a ripple effect on all of the other countries. It is no wonder that Obama was talking over the phone with the King of Saudi Arabia, with the King of Jordan. All this could completely be shuffled if indeed a regime or any process would take place in Egypt, which is not necessarily favorable to the United States. And it actually looks that if something would happen, it may go in that direction.
Obviously an important issue which we'll continue to follow. Thank you, Dr. Gabbay.
Thank you.
And you can read more on the conflict in Egypt and get the latest developments on 9news.com.